Can we give another round of applause for Tati? What an amazing word. I was so encouraged. Well, good morning, church. I hope you are all doing well this morning. It's a privilege to stand here today. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Tamar. I'm 22 years old, and I've been coming to Grace Church for over 3 years now. I married my very handsome husband, Jaira, earlier this year. And just a little fun fact, it is exactly 1 year today since he proposed to me, so it's pretty special. Together we serve on the youth team, and we also run a young adult small group, which we got to speak about a little bit last Sunday. When I was preparing for this message, I really felt Psalm 23 come to my mind. It won't be new to most of you, but I want to read it now and unpack it a little later. Psalm 23 from the ESV. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I want to share with you something that profoundly impacted my life earlier this year, besides Jaira. In mid-2024, I left a job in retail that I enjoyed a lot because I was unexpectedly offered an exciting position at a reputable health clinic. It was closer to home, was told it would lead to more hours, and it was in administration, which I really love. God opened all the doors, and I had this great peace about it all. And for a while, it went really well, even if it was a little different to what I thought it would be. For 5 months, I learned some new things, and I also put into practice my organisational skills, and I was enjoying the job immensely. I was regularly given praise and a lot of encouragement. Even my mum was told how much of an asset I was to their team. I was promised full-time work beginning January 2025, which was really going to help set up Jaira and I for married life. The clinic shut for a few weeks over Christmas, and the first day we came back was in January of this year. I was eager to start working full-time, and I had a quick chat with my boss, who wanted to let me know about some changes that were being made in the clinic. We had some new staff joining, there were some renos planned, and amongst the changes, my boss found out, independently, through a lawyer, that I was being underpaid and I needed to be back paid. I was really appreciative that I was told about this, and all seemed well. A few hours later, there was a major shift. I was pulled aside regarding my back pay, and what had previously been the most supportive environment and a very appreciative boss turned into the complete opposite. I was yelled at, belittled, and all the encouraging words spoken over me were retracted and replaced with criticism. I came out of that feeling completely confused, as I hadn't even known I was being underpaid. I returned to my desk and was barely able to keep myself together. But God knew my situation, because the next 2 people to enter the clinic were my mum and my brother. It was my brother's first appointment, and as soon as I saw my mum, I burst into tears and I had to leave the room. Just so you know, my mum doesn't normally have that effect on me. I left that day being told I would now only have 1 day of work instead of full-time, and I was really shaken up. But Mum and I prayed that night, and I went in the next day feeling afraid, but thinking my boss may have just had a bad day. The whole day, the next day, went really well, and I thought it must have all blown over. But after the last patient left for the day, the boss spoke to me in such a derogatory way, and I left the clinic utterly broken. I still had a job, but I knew I deserved better, and I didn't feel like I could physically go back to such a toxic environment. I couldn't understand why God had led me to leave the first perfectly good job only to move me into this situation, especially as it was only 2 months from our wedding. But God once again knew my circumstances. The very next day, my family and I had planned to travel to Tasmania for a holiday. This was not something we did very often, but we had always wanted to go to Tassie because of the Tamar River and the Tamar Valley, which sounded like a pretty good name to me. The day we left, I handed in my resignation. I left for this holiday with no job, and I was deeply scarred from what had happened. I became consumed by panic on the holiday, even struggling to sleep by myself at night. And I didn't know what to do. But I love how God works. You see, back in December, I had applied for a job working at Covenant College for 1 day a week. I got an interview, but I had to postpone it because I had not been told from my existing job what my days or my hours would look like. I hadn't heard anything since, and I'd forgotten about the job entirely. We enjoyed 5 days in Tasmania, and while I was at the airport on the way home, the HR manager from Covenant was calling to see if I could come in for the interview the very next day. Here I was sitting in Launceston Airport, absolutely dreading going back to Victoria, and God gave me hope. I went to the interview the next day, and I was offered more hours than expected. And exactly 1 week after I'd handed in my resignation, I was called to say I had a job at Covenant, a place where people knew me and a place where prayer is a part of the daily life. So to recap, I went to work on the Thursday and the Friday, resigned and travelled to Tasmania the Friday, travelled back to Victoria the next Wednesday, had an interview on the Thursday, was offered a job on the Friday, and the following Monday I started work. Yeah. You see, church, while I was resting, God was still working. What a God, hey? Like, how good is our God? Did that experience hurt like anything? Absolutely. But boy, from knowing God, the experience didn't destroy me. It brought me to a place of deep reverence for God's plan. I feel like Psalm 23 really spoke to my situation. As many of you would know, Psalm 23 depicts us as sheep and the Lord as our shepherd. But why did God choose to liken us to sheep? I am clearly not a sheep farmer, so I needed to do some research, and what I found was that sheep require guidance by a shepherd. They often wander off and get lost, and they are very vulnerable creatures. In order to survive and thrive, sheep require a shepherd to guide them, care, and protect them. The same is so true of us. We are all lost, vulnerable, and we require the guidance of God to keep us on the right path. In Psalm 23, the verse that particularly stood out to me was verse 2, which says, "He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters." So we've already established that we are like sheep and God is like our shepherd. But why does he make us lie down in green pastures? I've often wondered why this verse is phrased in a way that sounds like a force thing, because we know our God is not a forceful God. But this phrasing is very interesting because making a sheep lie down is actually impossible. You see, a shepherd cannot make a sheep lie down. The only way for a sheep to lie down is for the shepherd to create a safe and calm environment that allows the sheep to feel at rest. In order for this to happen, the sheep must trust their shepherd that he will protect them. Green pastures may look more inviting to sheep, but there are other reasons a green pasture far outweighs any other. First of all, green pastures provide a primary food source for sheep, which contains the energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals that are essential for their growth, wool production, overall health, and milk production for ewes. Without these green pastures, a sheep may not have the quality of life or even survival rate without a shepherd guiding them. In green pastures, the sheep can also eat their fill. They don't need to worry about if the grass is running out because it is always plentiful. When sheep are well fed, they are calm and contented. Finally, sheep aren't always discerning about where they graze. A good shepherd knows the land and will actively seek out the best, most nutritious pastures. A good shepherd also guides the sheep away from harmful, overgrazed, and barren pastures to care and protect the flock. A good shepherd knows which pastures are good and which are harmful. What's key to realize here, church, is the shepherd has a greater knowledge than the sheep do. He knows what the sheep don't know, and he knows what the sheep can't know. Without God to help us rest in these plentiful places, we would be lost, vulnerable, and not at rest. With God, we can trust in his protection, and we can rest easy knowing he is watching over us, and that the outcome of wherever he leads us is the very best for us. So what about the shepherd leading us beside still water? Well, we already know that sheep are very vulnerable creatures, but they are also very anxious and timid as well. They are naturally afraid of turbulent water. If they were to be scared by a fast-flowing stream, they may run away, or they may fall in, which would mean their wool would soak up all of the water, they'd become very heavy, and they may drown. Turbulent waters are also very noisy and can disorientate sheep. It can decrease their ability to hear when a predator is nearby. Still waters, however, create a calm and secure environment, allowing them to drink peacefully without feeling threatened or anxious. And as with the barren pastures, sheep cannot discern good water from bad. If they were thirsty enough, a sheep would drink from stagnant puddles that may be full of diseases, bacteria, and parasites. A still river is regularly replenished or managed by the shepherd. It keeps the sheep safe from sickness and any harm that may come to them. Without God, we are no different than sheep without a shepherd. We choose barren, empty opportunities that create stress because we don't know there is better. We can easily fall into the noise and the turbulence of life and find ourselves drowning with no way to pull ourselves out. But with God, we are brought to places full of abundance, where we can lay down knowing God is watching over us and protecting us. We have full assurance that God has the very best for us. Not the first thing that came along, not a stagnant puddle, but living water that will never run dry and that we will be entirely satisfied by. And as a good shepherd, he knows how to guide us there. In verse 4, it says, "Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." We don't hear much of these tools anymore, but in a shepherd's context, a rod and staff are both tools used for protection and guidance. The rod was used for for defense against predators and for disciplining sheep. The staff helped guide the flock and rescue sheep. There was a description of the rod being for gently tapping the sheep to guide them to the right path. I think God may have needed to do a bit more than gently tapping me on the path more than once. But this psalm tells us that should be a comfort to us. He sets our path. He uses the rod and the staff to guide us to still waters and green pastures, where we can find peace, safety, and protection. We don't have to worry about fighting the battles. We aren't holding the staff. We aren't meant to be the shepherd. We aren't equipped to know where the best fields are or where the still waters are. We are the sheep, and our only job is to follow the guidance of the shepherd. There is no way I could have planned the timing of my situation. I didn't plan for that job to be filled with hurt and anxiety. I couldn't have made the school call me for an interview the night we were traveling back, and I couldn't have known the incredible things that have come out of that. All I had to do was go where he guided me. Now, that absolutely is not the easiest thing to do, but if I kept trying to take the rod back, I'd be in choppy waters when God had still waters for me. I think the band is already coming back up, but great. If I could have the band up. Will you stand with me today, church? When we know God and we invite him into our hearts and have a real relationship with him, we give him back the rod and the staff. We give him the worrying about which path to take and what the right opportunity is for us. And instead, we receive the protection, the love, the care, and guidance from him. That doesn't mean there won't be challenges or things that we must face along the way, but the shepherd has the responsibility to care for us and to fight the battle. Most of us already have such busy lives with work, responsibilities, university, relationships, kids, friends, commitments. And today, church, I feel God is calling us to give the rod back, to give the staff back, to give back the burden that we often put on ourselves to seek out the best path or the best place for us. We don't have to take that on. Our God is so much better equipped to guide us. So let him. Give him back the staff. I want to finish in a time of prayer, and there may be people in here today or watching online that feel like you've been caught in a turbulent river. You may feel like you've been led towards barren pastures, not knowing there are greener ones waiting for you. I know that I've certainly felt that in my life. I'd like to invite the prayer team and the young adults team to join me down the front. If that's how you've been feeling, I'd like you also to come and join us. You don't have to know where your path leads. All you need to do is yield to his role as the shepherd. Take a step of faith and say, God, I want you to guide me to the greener pastures. I want you to lead me beside the still waters. So as the band plays, come down the front. Come and find someone to pray with you. We want to meet you where you're at. And God is waiting here for you. I want to close in prayer. Father, I just thank you for being a good shepherd. I thank you that we don't need to know where the greener pastures are or where the still waters are, that we can be led by you, that your guidance is a comfort to us. I thank you for the incredible things that come from listening to you and knowing your voice. I pray for each person who is standing here and those watching online. I pray you would lead them back to you, Lord. Help them to give back the staff, that nothing would stop them from hearing you, and they would feel the gentle tapping of your guidance. We thank you. We praise your name. You are such a good God. Amen. Amen. Why don't you come down the front, church?